Everybody, welcome to this week's webinar on working together. Before I hand you over to our guest speakers, here's just a few facts for you about the importance of working together. So starting off, excuse me, according to the Charity Commission figures, charity mergers across the sector rose by nearly a third during the first 3 months after lockdown. Two Age UK charities in Sussex noted that the impact of coronavirus on income across the charity sector emphasises how important it is for charities to work together to reduce overheads. And increasingly, interestingly, austerity in 2010 didn't lead to the predicted increase in mergers in the charity sector. On the charity trustees and management must think proactively about whether this is really enough, or if they could instead make more of a long-term difference, joining forces with a complementary organisation. The most transformative mergers are always those with a clear strategic rationale, not those carried out as a last-minute rescue. And the risk posed by COVID-19 and the potential benefits of consolidation should mean that charities must at least consider merging. This should be a vital part of every charity's governance toolkit. So now, Dad, so excuse me. So now I would like to introduce, well, hopefully two people. We have Chris Chapman and Bob Foster, but I don't think Chris is with us just yet. We start off with Bob Foster from the Swanage Development Trust. Bob will share how the Development Trust supports emerging community groups to the benefit of the local community. So Bob, if I can hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I chair the Swanage and Purbeck Development Trust. I'm going to put some slides on shortly. I don't intend to read out all the slides, but it's just to keep us on track with getting the message across. So if I give it a try and see if I can get this on. There we go. So can everyone see that then? That's the, so it's about mergers, but it's also about collaborative working in the community, because that's really important for us. And it was part of what we set ourselves up to achieve. So going to the first change. So I just want to cover who we are. We do have an umbrella trust, and then we have direct projects as well, where we actively get involved. We got started over 7 years ago now, but I think what's interesting is where we came from. We came from already a forum of the town council and local organisations. There's just Swanage Town Council. So the forum was already there, but what we were discovering was that lots of good ideas, lots of chatting going on, but there was no way of delivering all this, the things that we wanted to do. So that's why we then set up ourselves as a trust, as this delivery vehicle. But it wasn't just about let's get on with it. It was, we saw that we needed the skills to be able to advise organisations as well as facilitate things that they wanted to do. And then we acted as a catalyst for change in many cases. So someone may come with an idea, we may have heard someone else with a similar idea, and we just try and put people together to make sure those things happen. And that's been fairly successful. And we've always said, and I've always said as a person, that people can achieve much more by working together. And I moved to Swanage just something like 12 years ago. And I moved here with a great, I was very happy that I noticed lots of voluntary organisations were working in Swanage, but what I soon found out is they weren't working together. So what was happening was that they were having great difficulty in putting their committees together with people like treasurers. And there's a great shortage of treasurers. I'm sure that applies everywhere. So then a lot of them were failing because they couldn't achieve just the basics of management. So that was something we then picked up on. We also thought that we saw ourselves as people that fill gaps. And I'll come on to some of the projects where we've managed to fill those gaps. But then we met up with a trust that was in its formative stage, that was wanting to set up an umbrella organisation. And so we thought that was a great idea, and we merged with them at an early stage. And I'll come on to how we do that shortly. Now, we're happy to work with smaller organisations who have similar objectives to us, and we make clear what those objectives are. And we're saying to them that if they're able to, if they already have management in place and are willing to comply with our trust regulations, which are totally in line with the Charity Commission, and most importantly, that they have a business plan that's sustainable, then we're happy for them to come in and join us and become part of the trust. They retain their own name, but what they have to do is show our logo and show that they're part of the trust. Now they gain the benefits of shared cost of insurance, accounting, that the reports that you have to do to Charity Commission and the Companies House, and also we handle the gift aid for them. So that takes a huge amount off the shoulders of smaller organisations. Now, we know that it's a lot cheaper because we've had people come to us saying, well, what you're talking about in terms of cost is the same we pay for insurance, and you've got all these other things like accounting coming into it. So there's the benefits of scale coming out of that. But it's not just about helping them help themselves. It's also, we set up quarterly meetings with all the organisations, and that's more challenging in COVID days. But we still do it by Zoom. But what we want people to do is share ideas of what works for them and what doesn't work, so that we can then look at ways of working together more. Now, we've managed to get up to 16 separate organisations are now under our umbrella, and we still have 2 ready to come in. So we're getting very close to 18. And they find it very effective for them, and we find it very effective by actually as a larger organisation, which that creates, being able to then deal with grant funders and people like that, because we've got such a wide spread from dementia friendly through to MS, and we've even got into sort of helping the museum with memorials and things like that. Now, but they must meet our charitable objectives. But what it means is we've got such a wide spread then that we can then start to use that in our direct projects. So that's where I did want to go to now. So I've said about us being gap fillers, and I think the centre is a very good example of that. When cash was being withdrawn for youth clubs by Dorset Council, we immediately went to the town council and a few other organisations just to make it clear that we could see a way forward to retain the building and we could make it work. So the town council were keen to make sure it happened, because for them, obviously, to lose a youth club in Swanage was quite a big loss, and yet they didn't have the resources to do anything about it. So we now, and this was 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago, we now own the freehold of the building. It was transferred to us. Through grant funding, we managed to refurbish it, and we spent 3,000 hours of volunteer time in doing the work as well. And we met up with some childminders who effectively we now have a partnership with. So they run a 5 days a week childminding organisation plus wraparound. So that's sort of school holidays and after school, and then we then went on to get more grant funding to fit out the hall, which is shown below on the slide, for performance events. And that's been a huge success for us. The people like the Blues Festival, Jazz Festival, Public Film Festival, they're all really keen to use it in pre-COVID days again. So we're still suffering from that, but we're not suffering financially. And I think what is clear to us is the process we went through and looking well into the future of what could and couldn't happen. We've managed to achieve sustainable income. Now that has meant that we can then subsidise the youth club, which is what was necessary. But then we're also investing in other projects in the income that's coming out of that. So that I hope gives an example of how working together creates something. But another one which we're very close now to starting to refurbish is it was due to close because the trustees as of the charity that owned it then were old and had poor health, and the state of the building was really poor. It was really getting run down. So we then talked again to the town council and other charities and other organisations in town to see if there was a need for this to be totally refurbished and set up. And it became clear very early on, it was obvious it was needed. Where it is in Hurstone is an area of deprivation and child poverty, which a lot of people in Swanage aren't aware of, but I can assure you it's there. So it was really in just the right location for us to go ahead and achieve what we wanted to achieve in that area. We've successfully managed to get grant funding now so we're ready to start refurbishment in November. So that's when we lift off. We're hoping to get it all done by May next year, and then that's where we'll then go fully out to get local organisations in, build income, so that we can then use that income to subsidise things where it's the benefit to the most needy but can't afford to operate. So that again, it's that whole thing about sustainability and long-term future that's taken us along that path. And the building's going to look a lot better than it does in those photos in the future. Now, a much bigger one, we're obviously growing in all this period, is I've personally been working closely with the football club to help them. And they then came back and asked us to help them with a business plan and help them with the future of their buildings, because they're dilapidated buildings and the site's pretty poor. And the town council, the landowners. Now, what we've managed to do is create the situation where we have a collaboration of the football club and the town council. And we've got grants for getting architects on board to get us to the point where we can start going out for planning. And we've done a feasibility for a £10 million sports and leisure centre. And that was presented at a public exhibition. And we found locals were very excited about it. So it's something that we can get on with without being worried about COVID. And we believe that it's something that post-COVID will be a very important addition to Swanage. And a very big important thing for us is that it will create well over 50 new jobs. Now, I'm getting towards the end of this, don't worry. Now, our latest project is, you could say, very ambitious. But we've identified for a while, at least over the last 2 years, that children and adult services already under pressure in Dorset are particularly under pressure in Swanage. Swanage is the end of a very long cul-de-sac, well away from Dorchester. And what we're finding is that a lot of the services are being moved out of Swanage and put in Wareham and other places. Now that, in an area where there is deprivation and problems with children and families, is very unfortunate. So we've set about and brought organisations together to create something we're calling Wellbeing Swanage. Now we've done a business case to Dorset Council, and unfortunately, because of the pressure they're under, it's just sitting there. But we know that they're quite keen to go ahead with it. Now this would include working together in their children's centre and their adult day centre in Swanage to bring in more of the voluntary sector into areas like mental health, helping children. We've already got organisations within our charity which deal with people in isolation and dementia friendly. So we can bring all these things together. Now we've been talking to quite a few Dorset voluntary organisations in these areas, and they're really keen to be involved. So we're all ready to go. We've got a working party. We can't wait for Dorset Council anymore. These problems are very urgent now in Swanage. So we're starting on our own, but making sure that they're aware of it, and hopefully will join us as we progress. But again, this is about collaboration as far as we're concerned. This will not work without bringing all these voluntary groups and local authorities and health authorities together to make it work. We keep hearing about from Dorset Council and others saying they want to work with the voluntary sector, but we just want to make sure that it happens, because we don't see it happening in Swanage. So that's me. That's what we're up to. I hope everyone's got food for thought out of that, but please watch this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks. That's great. Now, Ray, do we know if Chris has made it? No. So unfortunately, Chris Batman hasn't been able to make it this morning, which is a real shame. He was going to talk to us about setting up a community benefit society in Sturmiston Newton, which is, as far as I know, has been quite a big success and has been a really good way of getting the community involved in the improvement in Sturmiston Newton as a market town. They've involved businesses as well as charities. So hopefully he'll be able to send us something that we can pop on our website, just a bit of an update on how they're getting on and any recommendations that perhaps he would suggest for anybody else thinking of doing the same thing. And I do know that Chris would be willing to have a chat with anybody about it as well if they want to find out more about it. So now, Joe, can we move over on to you? You've got some updates for us, haven't you? Is that okay?
I've got a couple. I did also want to put Jackie on the spot if I could, just to ask if she would... I've caught you now that you've sat down again, Jackie. Because Chris isn't here, I wondered if you could give a quick overview on BAVLAP, because you are the only person here that is a chair of one of the local area partnerships, to explain how they work.
Yep.
So could we have
I was also very much involved in BADCE, which is the Broad Windsor and District Community Enterprise. We set up our community shop. So what would you like first, community shop or BAVLAP?
Brief on BAVLAP, brief on the shop.
Well, the shop, we literally lost our shop August, I think it was 8 years ago now. And although the shop we registered as a community asset, when it did come on the market, there was no actual price. And in the meantime, we fundraised in our village. We raised £30,000 in shares in 16 weeks. That was in 4 months. And then we were so lucky, a company in Broad Windsor had given up. It was a little printing company in the old telephone exchange, and negotiations, and we had a very good rent, and we're still there and thriving. Thank you. Right, BAVLAP. Bedminster Villages Local Area Partnership, I think, has really come into its own with COVID. Not so much officially, but all the connections that we have. I'm in consultation with people from Holstock, from other areas that all feed into BavLab, and we've been sharing information. It is so, so useful, because that way there's no duplication. If somebody's got an issue, they just, email me, and well, my brain is like a computer, which Joe will tell you, and I'll think, yes, that area dealt with that, and literally putting A in touch with B and best practice. And I am hoping that Joe will be emailing all our parish councils in our BavLab area for asking them, could we please have details of, quote, their best practice and how they've coped. It's about recording and sharing the information and going forward. But also, I believe we now have parish councils actually fund, it's only a little grant, they only make a little contribution to BavLab's, costs, but I believe this is a way of showing Dorset Council that BavLab and DCA are so vital to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. That's very much appreciated. And I did like the plug for DCA as well. We always like plugs for DCA.
That's straight off the cuff, as I say. I'm dealing
Thank
with
you.
Scaffolding being erected today.
Oh, my word.
Yes.
Okay, so going to, forgive me, Jackie, I'm going to mute you.
Yeah.
I love hearing from you, but there we go. Thank you very much. Right, some updates for you. 10th of October, which is only in 3 days' time, is the World Health Organization's World Mental Health Day. And this takes place on the 10th of October every year. And I think more than ever, this is something that is so important, because where so people have been shielding and they've been isolating, it's been hard for many, many people. So there are plenty of services running around. I am going to get all these links to you afterwards, so don't worry about worrying about where they are at the moment. But it's things that if you've got a pain in your leg, for example, or you suddenly find that your left arm for some reason doesn't work properly, you would go to the doctors or you would go to casualty to find out why it doesn't work, because it's a physical thing and you can probably see that it doesn't work. Whereas with mental health, you don't see it. It's not as obvious. So things that might make you think that actually, yes, perhaps I do need to see somebody, whether it be speaking to a friend, having a coffee with someone, going to the doctor if you feel really poorly. Things like if news is making you anxious, and when you only have to look at that chappie in America who thought that after 3 days he was cured, and he ripped off his face mask and said that that was it, he was immune, naming no names, of course. But that would make me anxious. I certainly wouldn't want him in my local road. Hey, shh, George. Sorry about this. George has no idea about self-isolation or George, come here. And my husband's disappeared as well, so nobody's going to be able to help me here. Come on, come here. Anyway, so news making you anxious. Try and reduce. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Right, he's quiet now. If news makes you anxious, try and reduce how much you watch or read or listen to it. There's plenty of things on television these days, and admittedly some of them are repeats and some of them's quite trashy, but try and find something else to do. Try and keep your social contacts up. It's really, really easy to think, oh, I'll ring her tomorrow, or I'll ring him tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and then you think, oh, I'll ring him tomorrow, and it goes on and on and on, and those days go into weeks and then even months. So try and keep that contact up. Even if you ring up and say, oh, just ringing up to say, hello, how are you? And it's a 2-minute call. Just keeping that contact, because the other person at the other end of the line will also appreciate it. Apparently you should avoid using alcohol and drugs. Well, I don't know, alcohol I find quite good at the weekend. I don't know about anybody else. Nice bottle of wine. But apparently it's a way of dealing with fear, anxiety, boredom, and social isolation. So Perhaps the drugs might need to sort of be taken out of the menu, but alcohol a little bit. And then there's the screen. Well, there you are. You're all staring at me at the moment while we do this webinar. Actually, take regular breaks from the screen. It doesn't do your eyesight any good. And you do get to the stage in the end where you almost feel as though your eyes are sort of popping out from the back of your head. And it does actually give you brain freeze. You know, like when you eat ice cream and you can't sort of feel your mouth anymore? The screen does the same, but for your brain. And then using social media. Well, I've seen some absolutely amazing social media posts. Yesterday, for example, there was one fake news, really big fake news. Every single terrorist thing that we've had for the last 10, 20 years has all been put on just to make us anxious. Nothing to do with the terrorism or anything like that, as in being real terrorist things. It's almost been sort of like a sort of film, drama type thing. So I personally prefer looking at the Black Labs site, much nicer, lots of waggy tails and lots of barking and, you know, fetching balls, that type of thing, much safer to watch. So if you do see any misinformation, some people say that you should correct it. I'm not sure that you should really, because you can end up having an argument with someone on screen, and is that really worth it? If you're able to, if you go to the shops on a fairly regular basis, perhaps you can ask your neighbour if they could do with some shopping. Again, they will feel really happy that you've asked them if they would like some shopping done, and it makes you feel good as well because you've helped someone. So there's a little bit about keeping yourself a little bit happier in this situation. And then we have the old face coverings. Don't we all love face coverings? I don't know about you, but I've discovered that you can get ones with wires in, and the wires go from your chin up to your mouth, your eyes, and it keeps the cloth away from your face so you can actually breathe. Absolutely wonderful. Others I found, you know, if you make them yourself, some of the material can be too thick and you can almost end up suffocating yourself. But we do need face coverings at the moment. Everywhere you go, you've got to wear them if you're on public transport, and that includes taxis now. You must have your mask with you. If you're going into a shop, you must be wearing a mask. Hospitals, if you go to visit someone at hospital now, you have to book in advance an appointment to go and see somebody. So please be aware of that if you do need to go and see anyone. You have an hour's slot. When you go into the hospital, you have to wear your face mask. You'll go up to the ward. When you go to the ward, they will give you a new face mask, possibly a delightful sort of mid-blue PPE plastic apron, and some absolutely stunning mid-blue rubber gloves. Well, they're not rubber gloves, you know, they're the thin version. Most attractive look. And obviously you can't have any physical contact with the person that you've gone to see, so no hugs to ask how they are or anything else. Just stand by the door and sort of wave at them and, you know, have a little chat. But of course the face coverings they are to protect other people. And if we're all wearing them, then we should all be protecting everybody. And you all know about where you have to wear them. So it's all the public transport, taxis, shops, supermarkets, shopping centres, auction houses. Not that I've seen an auction house open for a little while. Premises when it comes to hospitality, well, when you first go into the restaurants, you must be wearing your mask. When you sit down, you can take it off. If you want to go to the loo, put it on. Go to the loo, come back out, sit at your table, take it off. When you want to leave the restaurant, put it on. When you get outside the restaurant, you may take it off if you want to. Is that clear? Excellent. If you want to go to anywhere like post offices, banks, you must wear them. Theatres, anywhere that does tattoos, cutting hair, nail salons, that type of thing. If you go to the vets these days, I've found personally when I go to the vet that I'm allowed up to the front door, have to wear a mask. I then have to hand my animal to the nurse, and then the animal is taken through, given a jab or whatever he's there for, and then I get handed the animal back. Oh, after I've paid the bill. I don't get the animal back until I've paid the bill. So they've cottoned onto that one quite nicely, haven't they? Places of worship. If you go to a funeral, you have to wear your face masks. And I don't know if you've seen recently, there was a bit of a hoo-ha yesterday about a funeral where they had made all the chairs 2 meters apart, which meant that none of the relatives could actually hug each other. And it was a mother and son that needed that physical contact at the time, and the person actually came in from the crematorium and said, "No, move away from each other, move away from each other, you shouldn't be next to one another." And I thought, there are times and places, there really are, but you are, as you know, you're allowed up to 30 people for a funeral, but unfortunately now if you're going to have a wedding, it's dropped from 30 to 15, so weddings are going to be much smaller again. Also, did you know that you are allowed to take your mask off if you're having to prove how old you are? So for those of us that are lucky enough to look under the age of 25, we are allowed to take our mask off to prove that we are under the age of 25. Should a police officer stop you and ask you to remove your mask so that they can take a good look at you to see if you look like a criminal or not, again, you are allowed to do that. If you go to a bank or building society, so for example, my mother had an account that she hadn't used for a long time. She was asked to come in and prove that she was still alive and a real person. She had her mask when she first went in there, but she had to prove that she looked like the picture in her passport to be able to show that it was her account and that she was still able to access it. If you're I don't know if anybody does any sort of real exercise or activity here. Any Zumba fans here? Oh, there's one. What, two? Any more advances on two? Okay, so not many Zumba fans. Well, you don't have to wear your mask if you're doing Zumba or any sort of high impact exercise. NHS has been quite busy this year, as you can imagine. And they are keen to let you know that they are still open for business. They are still able to take you in if you need to. So should you have a broken leg or anything like that, they will let you go into the hospital and they will fix it for you. It's not just COVID patients that they're taking on at the moment. The flu jab season is on at the moment, so I don't know how many people have been contacted by their surgeries. Good chance they've probably been contacted either by email or text, and they are tending to use online facilities in order to get you to book those the flu jabs. And what else can we say? QR codes. I don't know how you're all getting on with QR codes. We're encouraging the use of QR codes. These are the funny sort of squares with lots of dots and dashes inside them. It's probably the easiest and most non-contact way of being able to register your details. So if there's a QR poster in the venue that you go to, whether it be a village hall, shop, restaurant, pub, that type of thing, get your phone out. So if you've got the NHS app, try and use that. I have to say at the moment, Southampton Hospital, it isn't working, or it wasn't working last week apparently, which isn't great. But anyway, I do know it has worked in other places. Basically, you get your phone, you put it up against the QR code, and you get something on your phone screen to say that your details have been submitted, and it's as simple as that. But I do appreciate there are plenty of places that are in areas where the internet might not be very good, so you can't do the QR system, so you will still need to go to the sort of pen and paper regime, and you must remember to keep those details for 3 weeks, and you must remember that to know who the different people are that have hired your hall, for example, so that you can go to them if somebody comes to you and says that they've got COVID. And And then there's meeting people. The social distancing thing is still at 2 meters unless you have got a mask to drop it down slightly. But you must make sure that you wear your face mask again on public transport and indoor spaces unless you're outdoors. Remember to make sure that your rooms are well ventilated by keeping all your windows and doors open. You don't need to socially distance from anyone in your household, meaning the people you live with. Of course, though, depending on who you live with, you might want to socially distance. And I suppose it could be quite a good excuse for you to say, nope, sorry, you do need to be 2 meters away from me. I think of that for things like children and all that sort of thing. But children do like to make sure that they're very close to you if they can be. You must also think about if you're going out. So say, for example, you were going out as a group of 6 and you go to a restaurant and you spot someone from the other side of the room, you can't go over and talk to them. Text them, wave at them from the other side of the room, but don't go over and speak to them because they are in a different bubble. And it is really as simple as that. It would be so easy, because that's what we're all used to doing, to say, oh, Liz is across the other side of the room, I'll just nip over and say hello. No, don't. It will cost you a small fortune, because if the people that check to make sure that you're doing the right thing are out and they spot you doing the wrong thing, it could be a hefty fine for you, which I'd rather spend 50 quid on a meal than 250 quid for a meal personally. So just think of that. You really don't want to be spending an absolute fortune on your meal just for a sort of 2-minute lapse in sort of concentration because you see someone that you like. And no. So I've already mentioned about funerals. Funerals, group 30. Weddings, down to 15. Oh, pubs shutting at 10 o'clock. Well, that's been very well publicised. The difficulty with that at the moment, I have to say, for everybody, is that the pubs are shutting at 10 o'clock. An awful lot of supermarkets are still open and still selling alcohol after 10. And the problem seems to be at the moment that everybody is coming out of the pub at 10, which is causing lots of crowding on the streets. They're then going into supermarkets. They might have had a few to drink, so you're finding that the social distancing isn't working too well because of the way that they've worked that at the moment. So I'm hoping that they're going to improve on that. I've mentioned about the fact that you must keep records of all contact details for those who attend activities, and do the QR poster if you are able to. And you must make sure that you show something in your village hall or any venue that you go to. There must be something to say that you must test and trace. Even if you go to Costa for coffee, you have to do the test and trace there. I don't know if any of you remember, but earlier in the year, we were chasing you all like mad to do a survey that Acre had put out. It was a huge survey. It took you about an hour to do, and it asked so many different questions. It wasn't just about being inside your village hall, it was also the different facilities that your village provided, whether it be a community shop, community pub, all that sort of thing. Well, they're actually going to launch the results of that next week. So watch this space for that, because it'll be really, really interesting to see what the sort of common results are from up and down the country. And that information is actually going to be used to lobby government to hopefully bring some more funding down to rural areas. So it's a really, really important piece of work. And the other thing that I just wanted to mention, which I'm probably repeating myself really, but is this new expression, do your bit. So do your bit in Dorset, which doesn't sound quite right, does it? But do your bit in Dorset is preventing the spread of COVID. So remember to wear your mask, do your social distancing, sing happy birthday twice. Do you remember that at the very beginning? We all had to sing happy birthday twice. I don't know if any of you still sing, or do you still do it for the 20 seconds? You may not actually wash your hands for 20 seconds anymore. You may have got a little bit lax in it. So happy birthday twice. Wash your hands lots. Keep your distance from everybody. And don't forget to make sure that your face is covered. And I think, oh, and of course, if you've got any symptoms, please make sure that you self-isolate. Please make sure that you stay indoors for 10 days away from everybody. Please don't follow the example of the gentleman across the water. Thank you. I've finished now. Thank you.
So I think that leaves it to me to finish up with a funding update. I think the examples we've heard from Jackie and from Bob, and that we would have heard from Chris, are really good examples of partnership working, whether that's as a community coming together in terms of buying shares to maintain a service or an activity, or an umbrella body such as a development trust enabling those small grassroots groups to get going and establish projects by working together. Then the other way that we could and probably should be looking at more collaboration is in terms of our applications for funding. That's the link that I was going for. So I'm going to share some slides just to finish up. So bear with me just one moment while we do that. And I want to draw your attention firstly to the reopening of the Dorset Council Leisure Development Fund, which is open until the 31st of December. There's quite a wide remit for this grant. It's for any sort of leisure activity, sports, outdoor play, so cultural activities as well. But it also recognises the amount of work and the diversity of activity that goes on within village halls. So if you're a village hall or any of those sort of organisations that come within those sort of parameters or deliver activities that fit within those parameters, then look at the Dorset Council Leisure Development Fund. You can apply between £1,000 and £5,000. Now, those organisations that applied to the Dorset Council Innovation Fund or Impact Fund, can't quite remember what the name of it, that recently closed, you should be hearing shortly as the outcome of that application. So if you weren't successful, or you did not necessarily get the full amount you were asking for, then the Dorset Council Leisure Development Fund could be an opportunity for you to reapply for that activity that you applied for last time round, if it fits, obviously. So do look at that. If you didn't get the full amount, or you were turned down from Dorset Council Innovation Fund, ask the council for some feedback as to why the grant wasn't successful, so that when you're reapplying under the Dorset Council Leisure Development Fund, you can make the necessary adjustments and changes to improve your application and therefore improve your chance of success. So for some of you, this is almost like a second bite of the cherry, and I hope that second time round you'll be successful if you weren't successful the first time round. And obviously, if you're applying to this for the first time, then good luck. The next sort of local grant that's open now, which you may have seen, is Dorset Community Foundation administer the Wessex Water Foundation Recovery Fund. Again, this is a relatively small pots of money, £2,500. But again, it's quite a good pot of money because it hasn't got the same amount of competition as some of the larger national grant pots do have. And it's aimed at supporting groups recover from coronavirus or the COVID-19. And I can remember saying not that long ago, oh, we're beginning to see the number of grants for COVID-19 reduce, but actually looking at the grants that are available at the moment, there's an awful lot of them that have, again, repurposed for like COVID-19 recovery from the effects or the impacts of the pandemic. So again, have a real look, have a look at these if you're looking at funding, or if you've been particularly impacted by the pandemic, or your activities have, because there are still grants out there that will help you recover. Just moving on, the one I wanted to mention again, if you're a village hall or any community, rural community enterprise, so shops, community owned shops, village halls that are in rural communities, community pubs, there's the Prince's Trust's Countryside Fund, which are grants for up to £10,000 to support recovery in rural areas. So again, if you're a rural organisation, this is one to look for and look at. And then Tesco's Bags of Help. There, I think we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that they have now reopened the Bags of Help award, but they're going to be targeting activities, or the targeting grants towards activities that support children and young people that have been impacted as a result of coronavirus. So again, if any of your activities, so youth clubs, after school activities, play areas, they will be ones that would be considered under Tesco's Bags of Help. There are 3 other COVID-19 recovery funds currently available, and I've lumped these together because they're all for organisations that are slightly less well represented within Dorset. So the first one is for the Black and minority ethnic community, and this grant is focused towards those organisations that are led by members of the BAME community, which we have very few of within Dorset, but there are 1 or 2. So if you are one of those organisations, this would be a really good one to look at. And the deadline is the 30th of October. Garfield Weston, and I saw this morning, so this is only very recently opened, and it's a one-off grant for cultural organisations. However, again, you've got to be a larger organisation to apply for this. So they're actually looking for organisations with an annual turnover of over £500,000. Again, I'm not sure how many of our Dorset charities actually reach that sort of threshold, but if you are one of those organisations, then again, this is looking at how you can rebuild your resilience after COVID-19, get back some of your viewers, theatre goers, music concert goers into your establishments. It's that sort of thing. So depending on the size of the organisation, depends on the amount of grants you can actually apply for. Again, you'll see that they're pretty substantial grant amounts, from 100,000 to £2 million can be awarded. And again, the last one for larger organisations is the People's Postcode Lottery Recovery Fund. So you can apply for up to between 500,000, so £500,000 and £1 million, registered charities only. But the point to note for this is, if you're applying for £500,000, then you've got to have an annual turnover of £1 million or more. So again, I think it would probably cut out an awful lot of Dorset organisations. If you are one of those organisations, again, it's a worthwhile one looking at, but you've got to show how you meet those 6 funding priority areas. So have a look at this. We'll be on the DCA website and in the e-bulletin going out this week, so you can follow up for further information. But it's not all about COVID. So I know we have quite a lot of scout groups listen and tune in, and that we support. So if you are one of those scout or guide groups, the Leslie Sell Charitable Trust, or if you're connected to a scout group, then there's one-off grants of up to £5,000 to help you with your activities. There's still charitable trusts. I'm trying to pick on ones that we don't necessarily always focus on. So Still Charitable Trust, it's for registered charities, community interest companies and charitable incorporated organisations. Again, this has a arts and heritage or disadvantaged sort of theme, and you can get between £2,500 and £25,000. Neither of those first three have any deadline, so you can apply at any time. The Social Recreational Trust is about providing sports and leisure activities for disadvantaged children and young people. So again, potentially one for youth clubs, and maybe for Bob working in Purbeck, which does have a high number of disadvantaged young people. The Centre for Social Justice Awards is for small grassroots charities and social enterprises working to prevent poverty, and up to £10,000. But if you're looking to apply for that one, then you'll need to get your skates on because the deadline is this Saturday. And then finally, although this charitable trust doesn't maintain a website, and it has stated that it's particularly interested in supporting causes within Dorset, it has a wide remit in terms of the type of activities or areas that it likes to support, but the grants are quite small, so normally it's up to £1,000. If you are interested in finding out a bit more about the trust and what type of organisations they've funded in the past, have a look at, you can go onto their charity commission, onto the charity register, and have a look at the trust's annual accounts, which will detail who some of the people recipients of their grants have been. And if you're interested in making an application, then you need to email the trust. That's the way to apply. So that's my whistle stop tour. I'm going to stop sharing. So all of this will be on our website and in our email going out this week. The only other thing to say is next week, next Wednesday, if you're new to applying for grants, and there are quite a lot of new emerging groups that have just become constituted groups as a result of the last 6 months, and you're new to filling out grant applications and you've looked at a few and gone, I don't know what they're asking. And then next Wednesday, which I think is the 14th, I'm running a training course which is grandly titled Demystifying Grant Applications, but the whole purpose is to look at a couple of applications. So I'm particularly going to look at the awards for all application and try and work with you to unpick exactly what the funders are asking for. When they're asking you those questions, what are they actually looking for? So to help you make the best possible chance of securing that that funding, because your application is what they see. They don't know you as an organisation, so it has to go on what you write in your application, a bit like applying for a job. And also within that training course, I'm going to give you the opportunity, which myself and Julie have, of what it's like sitting on a grants panel and actually reading the applications that you receive, because it's not until you put yourself in the shoes of someone sat on a panel looking at the applications coming in that you start to maybe get an appreciation for the dilemma that a lot of funders have in choosing who they fund and who they don't fund. So the idea of the training is to put you in the shoes of a panelist, to look at a couple of applications and then to discuss whether actually you would give that organisation the funds or not. It's quite an interesting process, I think Julie will probably agree, of going through, and I think it gives maybe just a different perspective, that if you have that when you're filling out your own grant applications, if you have that at the back of your mind, it might make you think about how you're writing and what you're writing when you're making applications to funders. So if you're interested in that training or know anyone who is, then it is available. There's further information and the booking links on our website. So that is really all I have to say. And again, Julie, is there anything you want to just finish up with? I've looked at the chat and I can't see anything coming out.
No, there's nothing to add. Thanks.
Right, I'm just replying to a comment. Sorry, Helen, I am replying to you. Difficult to talk and type back. But thank you, everyone. So next week there's training, and not a webinar. And the next networking event we have is the 21st of October. I'm looking at my colleagues because my dates, Ray's sticking her thumbs up, 21st of October. And this is for village halls predominantly. Yeah. Good, I'm getting it right. So if you are a village hall, connected to a village hall, or know a village hall that might benefit from attending sort of a networking event, very much like the one that Julie did last week, which gives you the opportunity to, we're trying to move back to give you a bit more of an opportunity to network and talk to one another as much as hear from us, because there are lots of benefits in making those those contacts and building those relationships with each other, which could lead to some collaboration and working together, which is today's theme. So if I don't see you next week at the training, then hopefully we'll see you on the 21st. And I'm going to, Joe's waving at me, so I'm just going to let Joe finish up. You need to.
Just to say also, when it comes to the village halls, we are still going to have a little section on there where we have asked you in Eventbrite to write a question to say what it is that you know you're desperate to know. And then we'll sort of have a little question and answer thing, as well as you getting to share all your experiences. So if you have a really good, interesting question, then please share it with us, because you help us make the content for these webinars. So without you, it would be incredibly boring. So please, lots of interesting questions, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the week.